It's just funny. I was thinking back this is one of my favorite films of the year. But when I
Oh,
was
thanks, man.
Oh, my pleasure. I was thinking back about like what to talk about, and I realized, I watched The Last Dance in the pandemic on like
Yep.
a phone date with someone I never ended up meeting. And like it was just a way not to go insane for a couple hours.
Yep. Strange times we live in, man.
Yeah, and you watched it and went, I'm gonna change my entire life. So it worked out pretty well for you, I gotta say. It's
Yeah, it's funny, it's like one of those things where sometimes you'll go crazy trying to look for an idea when like the best ideas typically find you. Um, and I mean, look, there's no question I'm always on the lookout for screenplay ideas, right? And part of where I was as a writer at the time was like I was looking for ideas that had some sort of way in that was recognizable and familiar to people, right? I mean, I was an unproduced screenwriter, so it's like, my name didn't really mean anything on the front page of on the title page of a script. So it's like, what can be in the log line that will have people go like, oh, okay, I'll give that a read. I at least like kind of know what this story is, and then of course like you have to keep them hooked, and the script has to have some merit to it, but it at least is a way to get your foot in the door of an industry that quite often has the door firmly shut and deadbolted 3 times over. But it is funny because I had tried a similar thing. I wrote a spec screenplay about Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and the origins of Marvel Comics, and like, had the exact opposite experience where like the script was well received, but obviously nothing happened with it for a lot of different reasons, mostly because of rights. So this was kind of that perfect mix of like, it was a Michael Jordan movie, but not about Michael Jordan as the protagonist, right? It was a Nike movie, but it wasn't an adaptation of Shoe Dog or a Phil Knight biopic. So it was like telling both those stories, but with the right protagonist at the center. Sonny, obviously real sports fans and basketball fans know who he is, but he's not Michael Jordan. He's not Stan Lee in terms of like, a household name. So that just made it a little easier when it came time to like say like, can we actually get this made? Sonny being the protagonist, I think was kind of the key to pushing it down the road. And then obviously once you have Ben and Matt on board, you're able to have those tougher conversations, whether it's with Michael Jordan or with Phil Knight and Nike. It just it makes everything that much realer. But it's one of those things where it's like, I was just talking about this. People always say like find a personal connection in a movie, right? Like write what you know, and obviously there's a literal like way to take that as like go write an autobiography, right? Or like go find your version of Lady Bird. And I just, I didn't have that. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago and had a perfectly pleasant childhood. It was mundane at the same time, right? I mean, like I'm sure I could find a story in there, but certainly not like a spec screenplay that's going to excite anyone, maybe other than me. So this was kind of my version of something personal, right? Like as a 90s kid from Chicago, it's just like my earliest memories are sitting on the living room floor watching the Bulls with my dad. So I mean, it's just like that part of it speaks to me on a very deep level. And then, something that I definitely wasn't like thinking about or recognizing at the time, but now can look back and say it's in there is like, the stuff Sonny was feeling or is experiencing, especially in the first act and the second act of the movie. It's like, that's kind of where I was as a writer too. It was like, down on my luck, feeling sorry for myself, feeling like the odds were stacked against me, like just trying to make anything happen. There was that sort of like desperation in a way. So that like just was all it was easy for me, not easy, but like it came naturally to channel that stuff. And it is that form of like writing as therapy in a way, which is stuff I usually kind of bristle at hearing it. But then like I look at this and I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's all kind of in there.
Yeah, like whoops, I did it. No, you're
Yeah.
right. And it's true, watching the movie, I love it for a million reasons. I love Ben Affleck, I like sports movies, like everything is doing a thing I like. And then
Yep.
I realized in the third act, oh, it's a secret like mother-son movie.
Yep.
And I had lost my mother in January. So I'm sitting there
Oh,
going,
I'm sorry,
oh
man.
God, it's one of those. But
Yeah.
you have an in that you didn't. And I think what you said even about, I remember hearing about the Marvel movie, essentially being like, I want to see that. And then you never hear anything. But I think interestingly, you kind of crack the code on the blacklist because, everyone, we look at them every year and
Yep.
there's a bunch of them that are like, a mother fights for her son. And you go,
Yep.
cool, I'm sure it's great, but
Yep.
it's written by Ben Kool-Aid. I don't know who that guy
Right.
is.
Right.
Oh, Nike tries to sign Michael Jordan. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby try to start Marvel. You're like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm curious. I have a generic idea of what that is, and I like it. So
Yeah.
it, you then go into the machine of what does and doesn't get made. But I think it's
Yeah.
so funny that you go from there to not only does Ben Affleck go, I want to make the movie, and he's on the list of like, all right, if I can make a movie, I want to make it with him. So
Yep.
by the way, I want Matt Damon to be in it. You're like, all right,
Yeah.
probably okay with that. By
Yep.
the way, we're starting a company, so we like this to be like the flagship thing. Also, by the way, the company is about equality, so like
Yep.
we're gonna work on the script, but you get full credit. Are you okay with all that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
It's
I mean 100%, man. And that's the part where it's like, it's what you said, right? I mean, so much of it is just timing. Like I'm obviously very proud of the script and happy with it and all of that. But like, if I wrote it in 2019, like it could just be sitting there just like my Stan Lee script, right? So it is just like there's a kismet level to it of, Ben and Matt are the type of A-list stars you need to get a, dialogue driven, talky movie, mid-budget adult drama like this made. And it just so happened that they were looking for something together to start this new company. And they had a, window this summer, last summer, to go make something together. So it was the right script at the right time. Right. And like, there can be a frustrating level to that because it's like, well, gosh, like what am I supposed to do in that scenario? And like, what I tell people is like, you write the script, like that's the part of the equation you can control. And like anything in life, like you should only focus on the stuff you can really control, which is funny as a diehard sports fan. It's the
yeah.
exact opposite.
As
But
as I'm doing things my grandfather did to make them miss a field goal, you're like, it doesn't work.
exactly. But that's why I do view sports as like the outlet for all of those emotions without without that, like, I don't want to say lack of personal investment because it's nothing but personal investment, but like, there's not the other side of the coin where like, yeah, you can feel sorry for yourself about the Mets season or, the Bears and all of that. But, it's a way to get all those emotions out without actually being on the field. But
Yeah.
no, it's just like, it's right time, right place, right script, right people, the whole thing. But like, all you can do is keep going, and keep writing scripts. That's why I'm a big believer in speccing because you do control the script, right? And you're kind of working for yourself instead of working for studios or production companies where like only one person controls the script. I mean, the Stan Lee script, it's like nothing ever happened with it, but stuff did. It made the blacklist and it got me a job and like people read it and it's another way to get your name out there and you're never upset to work on something that you're proud of and that's a movie you would want to go see, right? Like if someone else had written that script, I would wake up and be like, oh my God, like why did I not do that story? I love it so much, so it's like the downside is I never have to say that, like I can be mad that nothing happened with it, but I'm still very happy I wrote it.
Oh yeah. And I mean, you not even luck into, but that in the sense of the A-listers who want to make your movie and will get the checks written also made their like mark wanting to do a talky. They made the same kind of movie.
Yeah.
I want to say 20 years ago, but it might be longer than that. God, I'm old. That
Yeah.
I don't think that at all. And so it is like it's a matter of timing, but also the right people to go, we know this. Like we also, by the way, like sports, so we know what we're talking about here. Like, not that that's the be all end all, but I would imagine the excitement level for you is higher having conversations where you're like, oh, they watch that game. Oh, they know who this person is. I don't have to kind of be like, or like you said, like, okay, so Sonny Vaccaro, and you start to have to do like the cliff notes, and you're like, okay, they're bored now. Wait, that's not what I want to have happen. This is exciting. It's a good entry point of they see what I see in this beyond the movie, just why I spent time doing this in the first place.
100%. I mean, you never quite know how these type of meetings are going to go when it's like, oh, you're meeting with an A-list actor, director, whatever it may be. And there is a level of like, obviously you do them enough times, like you kind of get over the like initial butterflies and nervousness, but it really comes down to like nervousness over, do they see the same movie I do? Like, do they like the same things about it that drew me to it? And yeah, the first time I sat down with Ben, it was just like, he saw the movie, like what went up on screen is pretty much exactly what we talked about in that meeting. Even down, I mean, it's funny that's like the thing I heard a lot about the script when I was taking like general meetings off of it was like a lot of it's inside, and like, you know, maybe like, could they go like outside at all or take a walk or something like that? And I brought that up to Ben, you know, I was like, I hear a lot that like the movie's too indoors and it's just kind of people in rooms talking. And he literally was like, that's what Good Will Hunting is too. So
Yeah.
like,
They're pale middle-aged white guys. They sit indoors. It's what they do. Like,
I'm like, yeah, fair enough, man. That's you checkmate. Like, I have nothing to say to that. Like,
I wrote Good Will Hunting and I came up in Kevin Smith movies. I'm okay with indoor static
exactly,
talking.
exactly,
Work for me.
exactly.
No, you're right. And I think when you watch it, you never get a sense of, it doesn't feel stagey or anything like that, because it feels like where these people would be. You know, it feels like what would be happening. It's not necessarily fly on the wall because it's written in a way a movie's written, but you never doubt the visuals of it. Like, it is a very, I mean, look who shot the movie, first of all. But it's also just it sings because the story hooks you. And I think, just going back to what you were saying about, like, you take these meetings and, you know, very quickly you have to get over like, oh, I know that guy, to be like, no, this is potentially my coworker or boss, or however the
Yes.
situation will go, and will we get along? And I love, just when I do these, you know, if they sit down sometimes and go, hi, I'm Ben. You just go, yeah, I know. Like, it's very
Yes.
disarming. Like, in case you don't know who I am, like, no,
Yes.
I know who you are. We're fine.
Yes.
So, and then just to sort of be on set watching it happen, like, even if it
Yep.
turned out awful, you're still
Yeah.
watching something that was just an idea in your head, then a thing on the page. Like, it was still nothing until day one.
Yeah. I mean, and there is that level of like, you never really believe it's going to happen
Right.
until you're standing on set, you know, and it's like you're saying, it's like, yep, there's Robert Richardson, and like, you know, there's Jason Bateman, and like wow, the costume is like just like it said on the page, like he's wearing the Hawaiian shirt, and yeah, the whole thing. I mean, it's just exactly what you're saying. As obviously, you know, a film geek and just lover of the form, like you know, being able to sit there and just watch it all to come together was a dream. You know, it's it is, you come out here
Yeah.
from the suburbs of Chicago and like you just never quite know how it's going to go, and it was, yeah, it was quite a ride. But at the same time, it's kind of like what you're saying too. It suddenly becomes like, that's not Ben Affleck, that's the guy directing this movie, and like, you know, now like we have to fix this scene, and like we're gonna go watch the edit of yesterday's. It becomes work very quickly, but the best type of work, right? Where you're excited about it, and you know, it's just you learn very quickly that we're all just people, you know, like it's like, yes, there is a level of stardom and you know, levels in the business that, you know, we'll never know, but we're all rowing in the same direction here, right? And it's just like you have to do.
Yeah. Wait, I think your audio cut out.
Sorry, I
There you go. You know, you're back. You're back.
don't know why my AirPods
You're,
just connected.
well, apparently you don't pay your internet bill, so I guess the movie didn't
Yeah.
do well enough. No, it's what you're saying is, though, it's really true, because you just you obviously want to have a good experience, because if not, why are you doing it? And then,
Yep.
like you were saying with the layers, I talked to Chris Messina for this, and, you know, he's not an unknown human being. Like, people know who he
Yeah.
is. But he's even talking about, like, I'm on set and I'm like yelling at Matt Damon, and like Ben Affleck's directing me.
Yeah.
He's done it a few times before, but you still
Yeah.
have that, like, this is cool. And at the end of the day, if you guys don't go, this is cool, this is fun, I can't believe they're paying us to do this, it's very hard for the audience to be like, I'm having a great time. Like, I think there are plenty
Yes.
of movies that are good where people had miserable times, but
Yes.
more often than not, if you have a good time making it, something there rubs off, and you can
Yes.
tell that just everyone there is relishing the dialogue and the part and the sort of joy of, like, we're kind of doing it.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It goes back to like, you know, the very earliest versions of the script, you know, where it was like, I wrote this truly as what I thought would be a writing sample. So I just kind of like, I wrote it to be read, which is not always how you write screenplays, right? I mean, like a lot of times you're writing it, you know, as the blueprint to be made, but like the thing I heard the feedback I heard most often about the script was that was a fun read. Like that was just so fun to sit down and go through. And it's like, that's because I had fun writing it. Literally, it's because I had fun writing it. So whatever I was channeling into the page was also being channeled out of the page. And it's exactly what you're saying, where it's like what was being channeled into the production is being channeled out of the production as well. And I mean, like you brought up the Messina scenes. It's like Matt's laughing like that. Like you can see Matt breaking character laughing, but it works because that's what the audience is doing too. And it's been such a lesson to me of like, if you're not having fun on the page and if you're not passionate about the project, people are going to see through that in a fucking second, you know, like, because the other version of it is, oh my God, I'm on rewrite number 20 of this. The last thing I want to do is rewrite this scene again. It's such a slog. That's going to seep into the page, right? And the reader is going to recognize that emotion, whether you want them to or not.
And then and the reader could be someone on the blacklist. It could be, you know, me. It could be Ben Affleck. And like the same, like you're saying, if they're not going, this is all, I'm having a good time, especially for someone who's, especially when you talk to Ben Affleck, who goes, you know, I've read scripts I didn't like and been like, I have to choose between the ones I don't like. That's just where I am now. I'm not there anymore. I'm not going to do that. If I'm not enjoying it, onward, upward. And especially someone who's protective, maybe the wrong word, but only directs things that they have a connection to in that way. They're not just taking a job. When you can make something that they go and have that feeling, you're starting from a good place, I think. So what I was curious about was, you do, you know, movie gets made, people like it, you do your initial round of talking about it, and then it gets quiet for a little bit. Now we're, you know, more than 6 months later, and they're like, hey, by the way, start talking about it again. And obviously it's a good thing. It means it's award season. But do you think about the movie differently now that it's like, it went from a thing I was gonna do to a thing I was doing to a thing I just did, and now it's kind of that thing I did a year ago? Does it change how you think about, besides obviously the positives of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think time, you know, time is the ultimate decider on this stuff, you know, in terms of not just quality, but like sometimes it's hard to know how you were even feeling in that moment, you know, like it was such a rush for the good and the bad. I mean, I think back to April, even like starting with South by, you know, it's like the strike was obviously looming. We kind of knew come May 2nd that we were probably going to be on. I shouldn't speak for the guild, but like there was a feeling that,
General
you know,
feeling like this is more likely than not to happen. Yeah.
Exactly. And I had a draft of something due. So like I was trying to get that done. And I did the classic, like, you know, oh, I'll just work on airplanes and in hotels while we're doing press for the movie. And it's just like, it was I was tired, you know, and like, that's what I remember. But the best sort of tired there is, you know, which is like, man, like I'm working really hard and this is like everything I dreamed of, but also like, gosh, I could use a good night of sleep.
Yeah. And you also
So
want to, like, oh,
yeah,
I'm gonna work
exactly.
on this other thing. I could also just enjoy this time I'm spending.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, like it's funny, man. I think back to the smaller moments, like that's the stuff that will stick with me, you know, like meeting Sonny and his wife for the first time and getting to see them at the premiere and just give Sonny a hug. And you know, even the smaller stuff with like Ben and Matt, you know, I just remember asking Matt about Oppenheimer and being like, how is it? You know, because he was just coming off it, or like just shooting the shit on set. And then you know, Ben watching cuts of scenes with Ben, you know, like Billy was shooting was cutting the movie as we were working, so we didn't really have dailies. We were just watching, you know, kind of cut scenes with temp score the next day. And you know, it was like being back at film school, you know, like talking about what works in the scene, what doesn't, like what, you know. And it is again, to me, it was a lesson in just like, it's still the same process, you know, no matter what level you're doing it on. Like it all starts on the blank page at final draft. And that's the same as it was my freshman year in film school. Right. And then like when you're going through an edit of a scene, whether it's with Ben or whether it's, you know, was my DP in film school that was just a buddy from down the hall, like we're having a lot of the same conversations, you know. So it's like it's just a constant reminder of like focus on the craft, you know, and like the rest of it typically will work itself out. But if you're not focused on the work, then none of it's going to happen.
For sure. as we wrap up, first of all, thank you for doing this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
But for someone, especially you who's worked so long in specs and like, well, I'm gonna write what I want to do, and hopefully someone wants to give me money for it.
Yeah.
If someone comes to you and goes, we want to pay you to write something, is there a thing that like, oh, if I could just go away for a year and come back with a script, I have an idea? Or is it
Yeah.
still, I need to be watching The Last Dance and go, I think I found a movie. What is there like a passion project already? Or is it still, I'm just happy to be working? Both of which are great.
It's a mix of both, right? Like I look at it like a day job and a nights and weekends job, right? Where like it's obviously when someone wants to pay you to write something, that's a good thing, and you got to pay the bills and keep the lights on and all of that. Ideally, it's something you're passionate about, right? Like there is, of course, everyone's question after this was, is there another sports movie you want to do? And there was one that I've been chasing for a long time that I am now doing with Skydance, which has been really exciting. I can't talk about the specifics of it, but hopefully I can sooner rather than later.
Right.
So that's been really fun. And that's, kind of what I was working on pre-strike and now post-strike, it's working on my rewrite of that. And then, yeah, I mean, dude, honestly, like that Stan Lee script is, if I could make one thing, it would probably be that story, because I think it encapsulates like all the stuff I'm excited about. It's like, it's a very character driven movie, but it's examining a flashpoint in pop culture. I mean, I just think there's great roles in it. It's again, a very personal thing to me as someone who grew up like really learning to read off those early like essential Marvel volumes, that were all Stan and Jack and Ditko and Romita. And then, yeah, I mean, dude, obviously there's like books I would love to do. Most of them are like, have been under option for 20 years and have like $5 million against them at studio. So like maybe one day.
Yeah, like, who wants to invest in this?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we'll see, but no, it for me, it all comes down to character, and that's like an easy thing to say, but it is how I pick things. And then it just comes down to like, would I want to go see this movie? Like if you think about it, any more than that, typically you're just going to drive yourself crazy. So, yeah, man, we'll see what the next year or two bring, but I'm excited about the stuff I'm working on.
As you should be. And I'm excited to see them. So I'm delighted that there's more coming. You got a little bit of a break with the strike. So
yeah,
I now go back and work because I want to see them. And I do think as an aside, I think that Air was able to do this and kind of thread that needle does bode well for eventually maybe the Stan Lee stuff, because you can show this much and not show that there's a world in which you can get it. Because I understand why they're like, yeah, do you know how many people have to say yes to this and want to, and everyone wants to wet their beak. Suddenly this movie has to make $1 billion.
Yeah.
So I think it'll happen one day. So I think just keep at it, it'll happen. But I'm
fingers crossed. I mean, what I say is like that story will be on the screen one day, whether it's my script or not, we'll see. But it's too good. It's just a true American story, art versus commerce, and the intersection of those things, friendship.
Storytellers, writers will
always exactly
writers.
Yes, that's right. And yes, therein lies probably what ultimately draws me to it. But yeah, man, we'll see.
Totally. Well, congratulations again. I hope this continues to be something you have to do, because it's in the awards conversation. It's one of my favorite films, and it's one of my favorite scripts of the year. So
awesome. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. You should just be very proud.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
Thank you for doing this.